Alright, we're here with the phenomenal Sir from the Jank Brothers Discord. Now we're here to discuss the game Rings of Power for the Sega Genesis. It's a game that he highly recommended that I play. I played it and beat it, and we're here to talk about it. So why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about why you're so fond of that game?
Everybody. I am the phenomenal Sir. And I would say for me, this is one of those games that I wasn't I wasn't a disadvantaged youth. I had lots of video games to play, and I had a lot of friends and all that jazz. But this was one of those games that I I got it probably when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I don't think I beat it for the first time until I was like 14 or 15. And it was one of those games that when I got it, even with the game having a built-in walkthrough, so to speak, I never really fully understood how it worked when I first got it. And so it honestly was one of those games that I had to grow up a bit to be able to like fully understand and appreciate and play. And I think that caused me to have a better appreciation for the game because as opposed to it being, one of the, dozens of games that I got as a kid, played, beat, got tired of, it was like that one game that was constantly like one day I will beat this game. One day I will learn how this game really works and I will destroy it. And I think that that's a big part of the reason why I like it so much is because it was just engaging and entertaining enough to keep me coming back to it for like half a decade before I actually finished it.
So I actually gotta ask, as an adult, first time I ever played it was this year, very recently, and I found it to be very cryptic in a lot of ways to figure out like how to progress and what to do next. Being so young, how did you navigate through that game and figure out what to do and whatnot?
Well, so I'll be honest, as I'm sure you are aware, I don't know, I know you bought a physical copy of the game to play it. And I don't know if your copy came with the manual or not, but the
No.
the manual for this game, it's like 110 pages long.
Oh.
Um, they very, very carefully lay out everything in this game, like how everything works. They explain the mechanics and that kind of thing to a degree that you don't see. You you rarely saw in video games in the 90s, and you definitely don't see anymore. Like, I mean, I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know if console games come with
No, they don't.
directions anymore.
Nope.
I think they just tell you go to the website. Um, so this, for this game to come with like an actual book, that helped me a lot. And just the fact that when you get to the back of the book, the developers were cognizant of the fact that this was a difficult game because they literally created a step-by-step walkthrough on how to beat it. And when I say step-by-step walkthrough, I mean they literally say, walk southeast to the town of Mind,
Oh.
enter the large white building, talk to the man standing in the back room. Like they break it down like step by step on how to beat the entire game. And I even then as a child, because the game didn't really have it doesn't have a quest log. The game does not spend time keeping track of what you're doing. That's
Surely
up to
not.
you. There would be times when I would be like, "Oh, I got this new game. I'm gonna go play this game," or like, "Oh, I'm gonna go play with my friends because it's summertime and it's nice outside." And I would go away for a month, and then I'd come back, and I would not know what I was doing, and I'd have to start over.
Yeah, I can see that
um,
being a problem in that game, especially if
you
you're not
know,
writing stuff down and whatnot.
yeah, I would get into the desert on the eastern continent, and I would save my game, and then I would realize, oh shit, I have no food and water. Guess I got to start over. So a lot of it was just
Crippling.
honestly me having to start over so many times that I just basically memorized the game a little bit at a time, you know.
So for people that aren't familiar with this game, like I wasn't, how would you like describe this game? Like, is there anything you could compare it to, or just a general way you could describe it? It was kind of unique for me.
For me, I one of my viewers, he said it kind of tongue in cheek, but I really can't think of a better like one sentence description. Is he says it's basically Elder Scrolls for the Sega Genesis. Um,
Oh,
it is it is 100% definitely an open world game.
yep.
Once you finish the tutorial, which if you're in a hurry takes 5 minutes, um, you can pretty much just do whatever you want in the entire game. You can go wherever you want. If you're crazy, you can just pretty much attack whoever you want. There are a few story centric characters that if you choose fight in the dialogue menu, they'll just say, I am magically protected. But for the most part, you can pretty much just like, okay, you know how to talk to people. Good luck. And then you can go anywhere in the game you want. And I think that the idea of it being described as like an Elder Scrolls or like I consider it to be probably the first open. Well, it's definitely the first open world RPG that I ever played. I don't know if it's the first open world RPG ever made for a console, but it's certainly the oldest one I've ever played. Coming out in 1991. I did a little bit of research and I looked, and the really only really big RPG title from 1991 that I recognized was Final Fantasy IV,
Mm.
which was a big game, but it was not an open world game.
The Final
You know,
Fantasy wasn't as
um,
big prior to seven anyway.
I'm definitely not saying that it is better than Final Fantasy IV, but I am saying that the fact that they literally take your character and drop you into a sandbox and say good luck, um, sets it apart from from Final Fantasy IV, which you know the whole only reason that came up is because it's like the flagship RPG for that year. You know, I mean that's the year Super Mario World came out. That's the year Sonic the Hedgehog came out. The
Mm.
original Sonic the Hedgehog. This is an old Sega Genesis game. This was like a very early Genesis title.
And it's
For it to
impressive.
be
It,
so open.
it's impressive how ambitious they were. You know, it is really big. I will agree with you. Like there, it was. I was impressed when I really realized how large this game was. And something that people kept asking on YouTube and whatnot was they kept asking like, "Oh, is this a Lord of the Rings clone? Is it based on Lord of the Rings?" How would you like really describe the story of this game? Because it kind of is. It's kind of not.
I would consider it a Lord of the Rings clone. I would say that the developers were probably on some level fans of high fantasy stuff, which
Mm,
requires that you be a fan of Lord of the Rings. I mean, you know, this game came out in 1991. It was originally developed by the actual founders of Naughty Dog. Um,
mm,
they were like 20 or 22 when this game came out. They were actually in college. So this wasn't a game that was like, I mean they had on the EA side they had people working with them or whatever, but like the core Naughty Dog team was three guys that were in their early 20s in college in the late 80s early 90s. So yeah, Lord of the Rings was probably a you know formative thing for them. I don't know that other than them, you know, the game being called Rings of Power, I don't know that it actually makes any real references to Lord of the Rings. Um, I don't know. Did I answer your question? I kind of got
yeah.
on a sidetrack. So,
No, yeah, you did. So,
um,
w-
yeah, I would say that it probably they probably read Lord of the Rings and it gave them an idea for, you know, the idea of like a high fantasy world. But the game was originally created as something called Buccaneer, and it was supposed to be a PC and Amiga title. And the whole reason it came out on the Sega Genesis, which one of the things I love so much about Rings of Power is because it has such a crazy lore to the
mm.
development of the game, is that at the time EA had basically illegally question mark questionably definitely acquired a Sega Genesis dev kit, and the developers for Rings of Power accidentally found out that EA had access to this bootleg dev kit for the Sega Genesis and just basically took it upon themselves to go to EA and be like, "Hey, we know you're doing this thing. Let us make this game for you on the Genesis."
I didn't know that part of the history. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was very much like it was in the age when, it was after the Atari crash, right when games were making a big comeback, like
Mm.
video games were making a big comeback, and they basically they had made a couple of other games. I think this was like the fourth title they ever made. And they literally they had a company, they made a company, and they went to EA and they were like, "Yo, we want to make this game for you." Like they just got a meeting with EA. And then when they found out EA had this dev kit, they were like, "Hey, we know you have this dev kit you're not supposed to have. Let us work with it." You know? And EA was like, "Okay."
That's pretty cool. I did not
So
know that.
yeah,
Um,
I actually read a fun little bit of trivia where they said that like the dev kit, like the Sega Genesis dev kit, actually caused some issues when it was actually working. Like when the computer or whatever that they were working with was working, it actually created issues with like television signals in the area. And one of the ways they debugged the game and like quality tested it was they literally had a separate TV set up across the dorm room. And while they were working with the dev kit, they were keeping an eye on that TV to see how badly it was like messing up the feed on that television.
huh. So moving on to the next topic. You had said earlier that this game was a really early Genesis title. It came out when Sonic came out, Final Fantasy IV, etc. How would you put just the graphics of this game? Just narrowly the graphics. How would you compare this to those games? Is it comparable,
Oh,
better, worse?
I would say definitely worse than Sonic.
Mm.
Um, Final Fantasy IV. I played Final Fantasy IV as Final Fantasy II on the Sega Genesis. In terms of just the graphics when they're sitting still, I would say comparable, maybe better. It's
I
actually
would
funny,
agree.
and some people may disagree with me, but when you look at the game, there's a lot of things in Rings of Power where, as a child or even as a young adult, I would be looking at them and I'm like, I don't know what that's supposed to be. But then one day it would like click for me. I would say, "Oh, that's a vase of flowers," and then I can't unsee a vase of flowers there. Does that make sense? It's
No, it
like
does. Definitely some of the
it's
objects and
not
whatnot.
immediately obvious all the time what they were going for, but once you figure out, like, oh, they meant for that to be a skeleton in an alcove on a wall, you can't not see a skeleton in an alcove on a wall. Like, so I would say that they, like so much of the game, they did the best they possibly could with the limited tools at their disposal.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that some of the sprites look really good, and some of the items are kind of hard to figure out what they are. But once you do, you see it every time. I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And then music
Like with a
wise,
click, like that's what it is.
I thought the music for Rings of Power, I thought it was actually fantastic. Like my friend Kevin, he came into the stream and he said something like, wow, the sound here is bumping. This music's great. Do I have like an item to pick up the milk, maybe? Goblet? Like, and he just came in, he popped in for a second. He doesn't like the game. He kept saying I should have stopped playing it while I was doing the playthrough, but he thought the music was really good, and I agree with that.
Well, I generally speaking, I would agree with you, with the exception of
Mm,
one soundtrack.
mm.
The Sorcerer's soundtrack is probably the most hurtful soundtrack in any video game I've ever heard in my entire life. Whenever you walk into a Sorcerer's Guild or the Sorcerer's Academy, I have described it to people that they were trying to simulate bagpipe music on a Sega Genesis, and they did a perfect job. I was actually telling my girlfriend the other day that I can remember as a child going every time you go into a sorcerer's guild, there's like that pause as the screen is loading, where it's like you're taking a breath and then you're physically assaulted by the sound of
Physically
of that
assaulted.
soundtrack.
Wow.
That soundtrack, right? That I think the Sorcerer's soundtrack is god awful. Other than that, I agree that there's a lot of really good music in that game. Some of it, if you listen to them back to back, you're like, okay, this is like basically the same soundtrack with a couple of notes tweaked around. But yeah, every time I stream, I have the same experience. People really like the intro song. They love
Hmm.
the boat music. Boat music is bumping. A lot of it's really good. Um, it's just that Sorcerer soundtrack, man.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. When I upload
Yeah,
this to
and
YouTube,
it's like
I'll throw that on here.
it's like the third soundtrack you hear in the game. Like they wanted to get it out of the way really quickly. Like, hey, just so you know, there's this thing. Um, and interestingly enough, the music for the game, talking about the development, the music for the game was actually done by like a first year med student in California. Like that's one of the cool things about this game is that the four main people developing it were all going to college in different states. Like so they were basically just sending floppies in the mail to each other and like talking on the phone.
That kind of blows my
And
mind because the music, it seemed like it was a whole team of people making that music. It blows my mind that it was someone who was just kind of doing it as a side project was able to compose. That blows my mind. That's crazy. Wow.
it was Alexander Hines. That's the name of the guy, and he was I think he was at like Stanford or something. It was some don't get me wrong. I don't know my high end colleges as well as some do, but it was some decently known medical school out in California, and he was like a freshman, and he just was doing this on the side,
Well,
which is pretty impressive.
did he go on to do anything else with his career, music wise, or nah? Because that would be a shame because he's talented. I mean,
I can look.
yeah, look it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's talented. I thought the music was really really good and was one of the best parts of the game. Because next I want to talk about some stuff that I didn't like so much.
Well, if it's the same guy, there's an Alexander Hines in Beverly Hills, California, that's now the executive vice president at some technology company.
If that's the same guy,
Yeah,
that's
that's
yeah,
him. Here he is. Quality assurance. It's showing him working for Activision and Electronic Arts in the early 2000s. That's probably the same dude.
that's probably him.
Um,
Well,
yeah, but
check.
he's
Well,
executive vice president of something called H2W Technologies in Beverly Hills. So he did go on. If it's the same guy, he did go on to work in game development. But
not for
you know,
music.
yeah,
So the game. So I mean, obviously, when you're playing a game, the gameplay is the most important thing, right? And that was really my issue in this game, especially when I first starting it. But even when I got to the end, the frame rate was so frustrating, where the sprites just skip along the screen with these terrible frames. I don't know how many frames per second that would be, but it's not many. And then you also have the lag for the input for whenever you try to talk to somebody or do something. You have that like really long delay, and then you also have the cryptic way you have to navigate. I mean, you said there's an instruction book, which I guess you're probably supposed to use to navigate around the game and figure out what you're supposed to do. But without that, like some of that stuff would have been pretty impossible to figure out. I feel like. Um, but yeah, that definitely I could see any new player to this game like really being put off. I know you had said that there were a couple people in the Jank Brothers Discord that tried the game out and were like off put pretty quickly.
oh yeah. To date, I have convinced five people in the Jank Bros to try the game, including you, and you're the only one to beat it.
Mm.
Um, I've had two quit before they left the City of Mind. The tutorial area. Retro OG San. He plays games like this basically exclusively,
Okay.
and he made 4 hours in and basically found himself at a point where he had saved his game with very little food or water in the middle of the ocean, and was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I don't want to start over, so I guess we're done."
Yeah.
Like,
The food and water thing was like I like the realism. I dig
mhm.
that when we play Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game, we try to like implement that a little bit to add to realism. But it was the point where it was like it was just very frustrating. And you, even when you spend a lot of your resources and max out food and water, it doesn't last that long, and you could very easily just get stranded. Where like you said, what happened to that other, I forget what you said his name was, but that other Jank Brothers member, where you just get stranded and you have to load an old save, and if you don't have one, I guess you're screwed. You got to start over. It's like it
You
was a
only
little
got one
ridiculous.
save, so it's not like you can do backup saves, right?
Yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I
very
will
very
I will
frustrating.
say as a pro tip, my understanding of how food and water works is once you run out of food and water, you just start taking damage over time.
Yeah.
Like every few steps, you get hurt. So in theory, you could beat the game with no food or water and just have a lot of healing items and just heal yourself every so often.
Well,
But I try not to do that because I don't feel like it's in the spirit of the game, you know. But
and
yeah, it's the food and water is a bit crazy. I mean, my run that I didn't plan it for this chat, but my run that I did yesterday, I beat the whole game in 3.5 hours. I basically skipped 2/3 of the content, and I had to buy 30,000 food and water, and I probably went through 20,000 of it. Like towards the start of the game, I maxed out the food and water I could carry, and basically just I beat the game by just going around the world twice in a circle, and I still used most of that. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, and if you don't know where you're going, the food and water can definitely mess you up. I had at least a couple of times as a child where just running out of food and water out in the desert or like in the mountains or something, I basically had to restart because of that.
And this might be asking for a little too much, but in the combat, generally I like the combat generally, but I think something that could have made it a little better would be maybe have a little description for each of the different spells for what they do, or have it so that each of the spells actually do things. Because because
Wait, wait, wait.
a lot of
You
them
want
were
all the
pretty much
spells to
useless.
do things? Wait a second.
I mean, you would agree. A lot of the spells and abilities work just do nothing, pretty much.
I feel like you're picking on Feather at this point.
Feather is definitely an offender here, where
Yeah,
some of her
I
stuff does
think I
nothing.
told you like an hour into the game, don't even bother getting the archer too soon because she's absolute garbage.
She was pretty bad. There were some times where she was useful, but she was
I would
generally
say
pretty bad.
if there was ever a remake, like a remaster of Rings of Power,
Never happened.
I think that the Archer would actually be one of the most valuable characters
Hmm.
because if you look at the manual for the game, like one spell of every level that she has literally exists to just push the enemy as far away from you as possible.
Yeah.
Um, and the game does track ranges, like you've seen, when you play it, that your party member will run up to the enemy and then they'll hit them.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And
I couldn't
generally,
really figure out
if you spend less time walking, you spend more time swinging. But it's not a hard and fast rule, and because
no.
it's not a hard and fast rule, it's not really clear what value it has.
Mm-mm.
Her just hitting them and they just shoot off in random directions. It doesn't. It probably, if you really dug down into it on like a pro at like the level of like the code and like really broke down mathematically how much damage they're averaging, there's probably an advantage to it, but it doesn't feel like there's an advantage to it. And if it doesn't feel like it has value, then the player's not going to do it. And the
Yeah,
combat is hit or miss in that game.
I agree
I mean,
100%.
generally when I beat it, there's like 2 to 5 spells for every character that I actually buy, and the rest is just fluff designed to take your money away.
Think about how much more fun the combat would be if the positioning mattered like that. That could be something you could really like utilize. I would use it if knocking enemies back like mattered. Like you said, like maybe it does matter a little bit, but it's kind of hard to tell. If it actually like was substantive and you're like wow, I really got to push these guys away so they can't get to me. Like that would be fun. That would add a lot of depth, I think.
Well, and not even that, but I mean, being able to just target specific enemies
Mm, that'd be
would make
nice.
a huge difference in that game because I don't know how many times I've had like, the level 8 necromancer down to like 10 HP and then Slash runs in and goes after the conjurer instead, and I'm like, "What are you doing, you idiot?" And then, he attacks and attacks and attacks, and then the necromancer just heals the entire enemy party the following turn. Um,
Those
yeah.
ultimate abilities. So I unlocked. Not everyone was max level for me, but almost everyone. So I noticed like Feathers Tornado or whatever it's called was really powerful. It seemed like they all did pretty much exactly the same damage. Is there a difference?
I don't think so. I think
No.
they all do 70 damage to the entire enemy party.
Okay.
Which as a level 9 character, your max A, and there's going to be a little bit of a variation in there. But I think as a level 9 character, your HP is capped at 140. So
Mm,
in theory, two master spells should kill every single party member. But I have also seen two back-to-back master spells leave an enemy with no health bar, but they're standing.
okay.
So I think there's some rounding there that doesn't get accounted for. But yeah, they
Mm.
all do basically the same thing. And with those multi-bullet spells, the enemy has a chance to block every bullet. So um,
Yeah.
it could be more or less some. And because of that, I think the worm spell and the master spell are probably the two. The master for the sorcerer are probably the two best master level spells because they just happen. They don't actually do individual hits. It's just everyone took damage.
Yeah.
The others all fire individual little shots at the enemy that they can block.
The worm spell. I forget what character that was for, but I remember that was like a hidden spell, which I did find. But whatever character it was, I didn't get to max level, so I never actually got to use that one.
Yeah, it's for the enchanter.
Okay.
You gotta go out into there's like a far eastern desert with an enchanter's tower, and if you climb halfway up the tower, it's just sitting on the ground there, and it's the
I
only way
found
you
it.
can get it.
Yeah, I found the spell. He wasn't max level, so I couldn't use it.
Yeah, it's actually a cool spell. The box art for the game actually shows that spell in the background. There's like a screenshot or something of the game that says like unleash powerful magic against your foes, and that's like for them, I guess they figured that was the best looking spell in the game, so that was the one that they used as like for advertisement purposes.
The feathers final spell looked silly. It
It
looks
was
dumb.
dumb. Yeah, it's in keeping with her character. She is bad. Um,
The art is it's consistent with how bad she
yeah,
is.
it's just a tornado with arms and eyes.
It looks silly.
I will say that the Conjurer, which I normally love Alexi, she's one of my favorite characters. And I think that she's probably, other than the main character, she's probably the most consistently good character in the game in combat. Um, Hers isn't much better. It's like a red-skinned genie, and his bottom half is a tornado,
Mm.
and he just kind of floats there with his arms crossed, and he does basically the same thing with the little fire bullets that shoot out. But it just doesn't have the added like WTF of it actually being a tornado with eyes.
But I remember
Like,
Alexi and the enchanter character. They both had these really powerful spells. I don't recall what they were called, but I know Alexi's was a little bit better. But they could hit multiple times, do a lot of damage. They're definitely two of the best spells that my party had in the early game.
Xyz was Blaze, and I
Blaze.
remember
Yep, Blaze
specifically like harassing you constantly to go to Shard, get Blaze, get Blaze,
is
get Blaze.
good.
And then for Obliki, the Enchanter, it was Frenzy, which is
Frenzy.
it's the same basic kind of spell, but it's very randomized what
Mm.
how much damage it can do. But it's like a level 3 spell, and it basically like as soon as you get Obliki, almost you get like one ring and he can use it. And it's basically with him, I don't even bother buying any other spells. I buy
Mm.
Frenzy and then I learn Worm, and that's what he does for the entire game. It's just Frenzy and Worm.
Frenzy, I remember, was really, really OP at the beginning when you first get it. It's killing everyone. Later in the game, it seemed to not be as effective, which makes sense. It's a lower level spell.
Yeah, later in the game, it basically becomes like the weakest group attack spell that you're going to use. But just the fact that it costs essentially no mana.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, early on, like the pirates are horrible because you get attacked by three pirates and every one of them might cast frenzy, but you
Yeah.
don't know. But
Yeah.
like if one of them does it, it's basically GG for half your party.
Yeah. And then that enchanter ambush. I know. I went back to kill all those enchanters later, but when that
Yeah.
first happened, like you can't fight them. You could get
Yeah,
fucking
it's like
destroyed.
actually impossible to the only way you could possibly do that would be if you broke sequence, went and did the ring of thought, and then like power leveled your party up. Because I think one of those enchanters is actually level 8. The others are all
Jeez.
like level 3 or 4, which is bad
Still,
enough. but the one leader is like level 7 or 8, and the only saving grace there is he tends to be kind of dumb and he doesn't use a lot of good magic, but every single one of those enchanters has the potential to cast frenzy.
So speaking of the Ring of Thought, essentially what Sir is referencing is there's this exploit where you turn in these items. You don't even turn them in. You show an item to these quest NPCs in this one dungeon, and you get 200 XP, which is a lot in this game. And you could do it
Yeah.
over and over and over again as an exploit to get max level. If you don't do that, and you don't do that trick with commerce in mind for infinite money, how are you supposed to beat this game? Like, how high leveled can you get not abusing the Ring of Thought trick? Like, I would have been like level 4, I feel like, by the time I got to the end of the game, if it wasn't for that.
Well, the random encounters it feels like the game is actually angry at you. At some point in the game, you reach the point where the random encounters become so ridiculous. I need to do a counter one day. Like when I do a full run of the game, I need to actually track it. I would say you easily get into 40 or 50 random encounters in an average run.
Easy.
Just like
Oh,
even if you're doing a
easy.
quick run, like
Easy.
it gets to the point where I'm just like, "Oh my God, really?" And then I just master spell and then I continue on my way. Um,
You don't get anything out of them. It's like in the
yeah,
early
they
game,
have no value.
no.
Some you get money from,
A
but
little
other than
little
that,
bit.
like the XP values are essentially nil. I
And,
will
they're hard
say,
fights. Like in the earlier game, you want to run from all these fights or you're dead. In the late game, you just waste your time.
yeah, it's like, oh my God, I can finally handle fighting two grizzlies at once, and then you get 11 XP, and you're like, ah,
It's like it's not even worth it.
well, I need 800 to get to level 4, so
Think about that. Think about the math on that. How many
yeah.
grizzlies you have to kill to get to level 4? Think about it.
So
That's crazy.
I don't know if every quest completion has the same XP value, but whenever you get a new party member, you tend to get some level ups from that.
Yeah.
And that's because it's treating it as a level, as a quest completed. There's like that sound that goes burr, burr, burr.
Hmm.
If I had it queued up, I could play it because I actually do it on my stream. It's like a notification on my stream. But when I played the game yesterday, I was doing my little speed run of it, and I skipped a lot of that, and I missed out on that XP as a result. So I think if you were to do every single individual quest in the game and no sequence breaking whatsoever, you probably still would not hit level 9.
No way.
Because you need 12,800 experience points to get to level 9. I power leveled my whole party up to like level 5 yesterday. And then I basically played the entire game and I still had to do that exploit. I think it was like 25 or 30 times. So I was
Yeah.
I was still only like halfway from level 8 to level 9. Um
And I don't know how easy it would be to win that final battle if you're not high leveled, but the way it worked for me was essentially whoever goes first wins. That's
yeah,
it.
I mean
That's it.
whoever goes first, there's a very good chance that the entire enemy party could just spam master level spells at you.
And everyone's
Um
dead.
if you're level 8, the only real strategy that I see is um, a really good mesmer from Buck,
Yeah, true.
and then just getting good results. I mean, I actually
Mesmer's
didn't know
OP.
this until yesterday. I think when you were playing, you got 4 guys with mesmer, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I actually got 5.
Oh
And I
wow.
was like, I didn't even know this was possible. I've been playing this game 30 years. I didn't know you could do that.
Maybe there's no
Um,
limit. Maybe there
Yeah,
might
because
not
it
be a
could be
limit.
one. You could do it and you hit one. And I
That's
think that
rare.
honestly, a lot of it is you would have to get really lucky with Mesmer, or
For those that aren't aware,
it would turn into something where you have to play it like a real RPG, right? Like your necromancer would have to be healing you, and you'd have to have the knight focus on reducing people's max HP so they can't heal back up. And I never do that.
so for those that aren't aware, Mesmer is a spell where essentially the main character has the chance to stun multiple enemies in one shot, and it stuns them for several turns. It's really powerful.
Yeah, so early on you can get a spell called Confusion that always works on one. And once you learn that, basically if your main character can go before a single enemy can go, then that single enemy is essentially guaranteed to die because
Yep.
you can just use your starter spells at that point and just chip away at them. Later on, you get a spell that it does randomly between. Always thought it was 1 and 3, but now I've learned through playing that it's actually up to 5 enemies that can be stunned for 3 consecutive rounds, and they just wander around and do nothing. Which your max party size is 6, so if you get lucky and get 4 or 5 guys with mesmer, you have to choose to lose the fight at that point. You know.
Yeah, it'd be you have to really be conserving your spells to not win. Like it's like they can't act at all. You just beat on them,
Yeah,
wail
they
on them.
literally
They
just
can't do
walk
anything
around in circles
for
for their turn.
turns. For like it's like 3 turns or something. It's so long that they're stunned.
Yeah.
Um, and then
And
like
keeping in mind that when the spell ends, it ends at the end of their turn and not at the start, which means that if it does end, you could just cast it again.
something you had mentioned to me early in my playthrough was that Slash's ability to reduce max HP is useful later against necromancers because of their ability to heal. But I found that I never really needed it. I think there was only one battle where I was really trying to do it because I was worried about the healing, and it ended up being kind of like not mattering really.
Yeah. And that's a consistent point across a lot of Rings of Power is that there's a lot of things that are like, wow, that actually is really useful, and then it turns out that it's not really that
Mm.
useful because the most useful thing you can do is just cast Reaper,
Yeah, well, yeah.
cast Plane, cast Torrents, cast Lava, like just hit them for as much damage as you possibly can before they attack. Um, the only times I have ever found it useful is if I was doing a non, like I don't want to say cheating, but a non-exploit run
Mm.
when you get to the Ring of Blood, where you have to go to that little frozen island near Commerce, and you have to fight all the level 9 corpses. That final boss fight where you have 3 level 9 necromancers in one fight.
That's where I tried
Um,
using it. That's where I was trying to
yeah,
use his
I
ability.
have I have lost that fight simply because they all took turns healing themselves for more HP and mana than they were using, and they just stalled me out till I ran out of mana. Um,
So Frenzy plus Alexi's ability couldn't take them down.
it just those two would not be able to take them down
Oh,
because if they cast Restore or Perfect, um, Perfect actually heals all targets in the party for more HP than you can actually have as a maximum.
I might have got
Um,
lucky when I fought
and
them
it
then.
does restore mana, but it doesn't restore the user's mana. But if you have two necromancers in the enemy party, they can both use perfect and basically just keep giving each other mana back.
Okay, so you
Um,
do a big mesmer and then hope to get lucky before that runs out, basically.
yeah,
Okay.
basically.
So in this game, when it comes to replayability and end game content, I know that when you beat the game, we both were talking about this yesterday. When you beat the game, you basically you get an opportunity to just do whatever you want. Like the game ends, but then you get control of your characters again, and you can continue. Did
Yeah.
we ever figure out is there stuff you could do, and then is it worth it? Do you feel like for the average player to revisit this game after beating it and start new playthroughs?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna be biased because I've beaten it. I've done 19 episodes of it now on stream
Oof,
in a year and a half. I
19.
think I've beaten it 5 times, like straight through, just on stream.
It took
But
me
I
like
will
20
say
plus
that I
hours
have
to beat
never
this.
played it after the credits roll. And me and you were talking about that last night. I was like, before I turned 40, I really ought to like actually play this game past the credits because I'm sure they hid something in there, right? Like they had to have because there's
Maybe
so many little secrets in that game. I can't imagine that they didn't put something in there.
it's
But
possible they didn't. It's possible that you just have the opportunity to go do stuff you didn't do, and that's it. It's
yeah,
possible.
I don't know. I'm still thinking that the next like really long marathon stream I do, I may very well just beat the game and I say it jokingly, like try to kill every person in the world, but really, like me trying to kill every person in the world would require me to go into every single building in the game and talk to every single person, and that would kind of be like how I find secrets is just like basically wipe everybody out, you know?
That'd be kind of cool to do. I think be kind of cool.
It would be really depressing in some of the larger towns when you're literally because I mean people I don't think people realize even if you're just playing the game how many NPCs are in that game
Oh,
that
there's a
serve
lot.
no purpose other than to just be there.
Impressive that a Genesis game could do something like that. And
Yeah, I
can
mean
you
there's
Can you get
Some of
soft
those
locked?
towns probably have 20 or 30 NPCs easily that you never have to talk to that are
Can,
just like townsfolk, you know?
can you get soft locked killing NPCs? I would imagine you can, right?
Actually, I don't know if you can or not. I've never intentionally tried to get soft locked by killing a storyline or a storyline character in the traditional sense. Now, I
Okay.
will say there are some characters that when you say fight, they will say you cannot attack me. I am magically protected.
Well,
Now, I do know of a couple of characters that you can soft lock if you go out of your way to kill them within a quest. And those two are Fiverr, who, for the Ring of Division quest, you have to go to the City of Commerce, find Fiverr, and then Fiverr is like, oh, please spare me and I'll leave town. You'll never
I
see me
remember
again.
that. I
Yeah.
remember that.
So if you say no and you kill him, you
You can
can
get
soft
locked in the
lock
tower.
yourself in the Enchanter's Tower. You go up to the top of the tower, which is not required. But if you go to the top of the tower and talk to the Enchanter, he will cast a spell on you that no enchanter in the game actually knows, where he like freezes you and then walks you into a prison cell like a
Yeah.
puppet, and then you just starve to death. If you have already freed Fiverr, if you've spared Fiverr's life, he will show up and let you out. So that's the first way you can soft lock. The second way you can soft lock is if you kill Lenny in the the mayor's house, or the public government building in
Lenny.
Speed,
I don't
because
remember.
the thief that you have to give the flipstone to, and he gives you the map to the mine so you can get the archer. Um, he is actually the guy guarding the door to the treasury that holds the holy seal. So if you kill him, I don't know if the game substitutes another bandit or not. I'd have to try it out. But in theory, you might be able to actually soft lock there as well by killing him and then just not having anybody there to let you in that door.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't really remember that. I remember the thing that you mentioned with Fiverr. The thing with Lenny, I
Yeah.
don't remember. So,
It's like it's like the bandit's fortress. That's at the very end. It's where you get the item that you use to actually open the door to Nexus's chambers or whatever.
I remember the fortress. I don't remember that character.
Yeah, he's guarding that treasury room door, and when you talk to him, he's like, "Hey man, never forgets a favor," and then lets you in.
Okay,
I
that
don't
is
know if he
familiar.
does that if you kill him. I don't know if the game like subs in another bandit or what, but other than that, soft locking. I actually know of one spot where you can cause the game to return a fatal error that ends your game instantly, and then you have to reload. That's in Sparta because of a glitch with an NPC's placement and like how walking works. Um, and then it's the only I think that's the only other one I know of for certain. There's a couple of spots where and I'm sure you ran into this because of the way the map works. You can step onto a terrain square and then you can't step back off. And if you were to save there, in theory, you could be soft locked.
I remember running into that, but I never saved in one of those spots. So,
There's a spot like that near Blood where you get the enchanter, and there's another spot in the town where Keith the Thief lives, where
hmm.
you start the quest to get the Ring of Will. Just north of the town, there's a square you can step on where like you have to step off a bridge onto a green square, but then it won't let you step onto the bridge from that angle, and it traps you there.
I have one more thing to go over, and then we can conclude this discussion. Essentially, would you recommend this game to number one RPG enthusiasts that are old school that played the older RPGs, and number two newer RPG players, the younger generation RPG fans? Would you recommend this game to them?
Taking the question backwards to forwards, I would
Mm.
say new or younger RPG fans, I definitely do not recommend it for. Um, Simply because if you are and I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but if you are a new or young RPG fan, then that tells me that you are used to playing newer games. And I think
Hmm.
you and anybody out there who grew up in the 80s, 90s would agree that even in the RPG genre, uh, games are a lot more merciful now than they used to be.
No
And
doubt.
I will be the first to admit that there are times when this game feels less fair.
No, no kidding.
um, I have a at the end of this whole thing, I have a disclaimer I want to say, but I would say for now that the game does not feel as player friendly as games that are coming out now. So I would not recommend it for the average new RPG fan or young RPG fan.
Okay.
For older people, I think that there's a lot there because it is so unique. You know, like there's a lot about the game. It's my favorite game. Everybody that knows me that watches my streams knows it's my favorite game.
Number one. Number one of
It
all
is
time.
it is not the best game I've ever played.
Okay.
Distinction to make there. It is
Favorite.
not the best game I've ever played, but it is my favorite game to play. And I think that that's an
Wow.
important distinction because there are better RPGs out there. Better RPGs came out in 1991, but no other RPG like that game came out in 1991 for the Sega Genesis.
It is a unique
So,
game. I will agree with you there. It is a very unique game.
so I would recommend it for like retro or like janky games. I can't even call it a janky game, honestly, because janky games are games that don't work, and that game works the way it's supposed to. It's just
Eh,
limited by the tools
that frame
for the
rate,
most part.
man. Oof. That
Yeah,
frame
it,
rate.
it, it was
Oh,
made to run on the Amiga.
that makes sense. It was
Um,
very hard to get into playing this. It was very
yeah,
hard.
but I would say if you are a fan of retro RPGs, if you're the kind of person that plays things, and this isn't technically the same type of game, but if you play things like King's Quest and you play things like Ultima, and I've heard people compare it to Power Monger and things like that. I think that there's something there to like if you can get past it. Like I've watched Indara play it, and the first time Indara played it, he was like, "This game sucks. I hate it." That was his basic takeaway. And then the second session he did, he played it, and he had so much fun because he got into a spot where he was in a fight that was really genuinely difficult, but he knew that there was a way he could beat it, and he did that same fight over and over and over, and you could see the look of accomplishment on his face when he beat it. And then like the third time you played it, you were like, I can't play too long because I got to work tomorrow. And then you streamed it for like 7 hours, right? It's
Yeah.
like 1 in the morning, and you're like, oh my god, hours.
But I gotta go back. I gotta go to work.
Yeah, so it's a big ask nowadays to tell a player like, hey, just give it 6 hours and see if you like it. But
Mm,
that's the problem is it's a slow burn, and you really have to have patience and just appreciate that the game is it did the best it could.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I think this is a good spot to end the discussion. But I will say I'm currently playing Crystallis, which is another one of your recommendations. And if you want to do a discussion on that when I complete that, I'm down.
So I love Crystallis. I've only ever actually beaten it like 3 times. I haven't played it nearly as much as Rings of Power,
Okay.
but that was one I actually played as a kid. Like I had the actual NES cartridge for that as a kid, and I wore that sucker out when I was little. So that's
It's
another hard one, but it's not mean like Rings of Power.
it's fun, but it's very cryptic. Just like
Yeah.
where you're like, how would you ever figure some of this stuff out?
Yeah. And
But
that's my disclaimer for Rings of Power is I would say that everything about that game feels very unfair until you understand the mechanics behind it. And then you realize that it's not that the game is unfair, it's just that they don't consider it their job to do you any favors, right? It's like a
sure don't.
DM. You DM for D&D. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing, right? Like a DM, it's not the DM's job to give you a lot to keep you alive. It's the DM's job to give you a fun adventure and present opportunities for success or failure. And I think that they maybe went a little overboard with that in Rings of Power, and they were like, "Hey, it's not our job to keep you alive, man. We're just going to give you lots of opportunities to succeed."
Listen, if you want to fight this wyvern at level 1, you can.
Yeah, yeah, you can if
You
you want to.
can.
Maybe you'll win. Maybe you'll block 9 consecutive attacks,
You
but you
won't.
probably won't.
You won't. You're dead.
Yeah,
All right. It was good chatting with you about this game, and until next time.
absolutely. I enjoyed it, and I would just say anybody out there that wants to play it, feel free to contact me or contact Indara, and he can put you in touch with me, and I can give you a couple of couple of different methods to gain access to this game to play it on the PC.
Where can people
And
find
it's
you?
I'm sorry.
Oh, where can people find you?
Well, you can definitely find me on Twitch. The Phenomenal Sir on Twitch, the Phenomenal Sir on YouTube. Honestly, if you just go on YouTube and search Rings of Power, you'll probably find me very quickly because I'm like the only fool in the world playing that game, playing that game on a regular basis.
Makes sense.
But yeah, basically anywhere you look for the Phenomenal Sir, I'm there, and I can help you. I can help you get it on Steam. I can help you get it, through other methods. If it's something that you're interested in playing.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for chatting, and we'll
Absolutely. Thank you for
pick up
the
another time.
opportunity. I'm looking forward to watching you play more of the next thing, Crystalis, and then whatever comes afterwards.
I think Crystalis is almost done. I don't think it's very long. I'm in Swan.
It's not a long game. I think the last time I played it, it was about 12 hours.
12 hours. Yeah,
So,
I'm in Swan right now, so I feel like I'm pretty close to the end.
yeah, you're like halfway through it.
Oh, that's it?
Swan?
Yeah.
I'd say so, yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So I have a lot
Level
left
cap is 16 on that game. So
I'm 11.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you, man. Thanks for chatting.
Absolutely. I will talk to you later, sir.
Alrighty.
Video game speed on stream.
In television, intelligent television by Mattel.
I don't know. Where is he going? Oh, he's back to the ship. That's it. I won. Yeah.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Looks like we're losing here. Oh, we did it! Dig it. Alright, we got it. That was rough. Whew. Oh my god! Yes! Oh, I don't have that much energy. Uh-oh. Yeesh. Really been focused much. Thank God. Well, here we go. Meteor.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind...
Jesus! Whoa. What the heck is he doing? Thankfully he didn't do this against me. That would have been a problem. I'll do anything for you. Please be my friend. Yes. Let's be friends. Ryu, use the magic of Agni. She'll reveal her true self. Oh no. I'm gonna use my extract. I'll blue use it next turn.
Something's gone wrong in the happy-go-lucky world of Nintendo.
Minji go. Twist of fate. Oh. Look at this. Swanton bomb. Here it comes. Oh. Oh.
What should we do, Teach?
Kill every last one of them!
I'll strike you down! Oh!
All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy.
Nice. Careful. Careful, smart. Nice. Did we do this? Oh, Daisy. One. All right, we're both at one hit. Did we win? Did we beat him? Did we beat the game? He's turning into a baby. Very even right now.
What Nintendo?
That's it. Did we do it, or is there more? Oh, I think that must be it. We just ran off the space. Twister. Again, it's her ultimate spell. Might actually take one or two of them down, potentially. Nope. Into the pit you go, sucker.
Sega Saturn, the most powerful, the most technologically advanced.
Just take my time with him. Oh! That was kind of slow. Check out. Alright. Didn't really damage him that well in that sequence. I bet it'll be effective. Oh, 2,000 damage! It's gonna hit him again. Oh no, it didn't. Damn! 2,400 it did. Probably have to time for like one more pass. That's probably it. But the passes seem to take a pretty long time.
The tower appears as one huge crystal.
Won the A, B, or C probably. Yeah, jump in there. Oh yeah.
To get color. Get a Game Gear, the full color portable with over 150 games. Like
rotate.
Introducing TurboGrafx 16, the next generation video game system.
No way.
The name Dark Fact will be the scourge of all men to come. Oh, you are brave, but you are also a fool.
We're unveiling the Xbox.
Ha! Yes! Yeah! What a fun boss fight. What a great ball. What a great game.
It looks like you chose the wrong party to crash.
I have come for Ichigoya, but I guess I have to deal with you first.
Alright, we're here, just sitting in the car. I want you to show...
Come on, let's push it past the red line! Stop them, you fools! Don't let them escape!
They're going to drop the plate on us?
Yes.
Here. Have a snack. Girl.
Now, I've seen everything. What the fuck? What is that?
They're coming. Who is? What the hell was that?
Stop shouting. You'll draw the monsters.
You sent that asteroid toward Terra Nova to help your people. But what does killing me accomplish?
Vengeance. The Bahak system.
Oh shit! No. Okay, get to a clinic now.
Mr. Wells' condition is critical.
Go!
Whoa, that was cool. Look at her jumping from guy to guy. Whoa, that's awesome.
It's taking damage though. That's so cool. I get to play as this thing. Yo, these things miss. Can these things miss me? Notice too about this axe is it really does like the actual physical attack of it does a lot of fucking damage. There's just no doubt about that. Look, I'm just not taking damage from this stuff because of the shield the axe makes.
My phone crashed right now.
Yeah, right?
Video games streamed, but not beat.
What are you doing?
I got him. 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 Ready?
Yeah,
One,
yeah,
two.
That was awesome.
God damn it.
Oh, that was good.
I'm on fire.